under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On to the informational agenda, and we'll take comments and statements at the end. Dr. Colley, update on the middle school and the test results.
Well, we're trying to see if we can get it up on the screen. The good news is just about every classroom that we have tested has tested below 450. There's two thresholds to deal with at the middle school level. One threshold deals with students ages 6 through 12. And then there's one for 12 to, I think it's 18, and adults are somewhere in there as well. The 6 to 12 range is 300 nanograms per meter cubed. That's the EPA threshold for them on average, 6.5 hours a day, 180 days a year. For 12 through 18, I believe it's 450 nanograms per meter cubed. So basically every teaching space that we have, we just got verbal some results, even as little as 15 minutes ago. So the art room is now below 450. At one point in time, it was an average of 485. Now it's below 450. Room 279, which used to be the old Spanish room, is now below 300.
Which one is that? 279?
279, right behind the art room.
Oh, okay.
That is what? Oh. It's below 300. The media center is below 300. The gym is below 300. The auditorium is below 300. The music room downstairs is below 300. Oh, and the nurse's office is below 300. So that kind of gives you a picture pretty much of the teaching areas, or the areas where we would expect kids to spend quite a bit of time in. We do have some areas where we had some students that were slated to go in, or classrooms of 5th or 6th graders, which are mostly below 12-year-olds, into some of the rooms that were above 300, like room 110. Room 108 on average is really 275. I had a question of whether we should clear it, because we did have 2 readings from the room in the same day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, possible people going in and out. One was 140, the other one was 410, but the average is 275, which is below 300. Oh, there we go.
Should be able to draw with the mouse.
I can draw with the mouse.
Yeah.
What mouse?
Sorry.
Highlighter?
The board we had last week went into a classroom, so.
So we're talking about this room here, which is room 108. If you look over here, it has, let me see if I can get a better marker on that's darker.
Can we turn up the light maybe? Would that help?
No, I'm going to try a different theme color. If you see these these 2 numbers over here, one's 410, one's 140, average 275. I don't want to draw at this point. So this room could be cleared right now. We're using a spare room upstairs where she can go at least for a little bit while we re-clean that room and retest it. We also have
This room here, which is very close to the limit, is 310. And this room down here, 107, is 410. These rooms that are going above 300, here, there's another 171, and a few upstairs, these two over here, and this one over here. These, one of them is a computer room, another one is a small room, I'm not sure what they use it for. And this one's an average of 300 as well. So there's quite a few areas, not a, sorry.
Okay, I can do it from here. So basically, we have some areas that would be teaching areas that are above 300 but below 450. Because they're below 450, we could use them for 7th and 8th graders, which are mostly 12 years old, some of them pushing 14. And I've spoken to the principal, so basically we can, in essence, use some of those rooms by moving people around so that we only have those rooms available for 7th and 8th graders, and then the rest of the rooms can be used for the 5th and 6th graders that are probably below 12 years old. So that's the first part of the picture that I wanted to put out there. Let me see if I can do some more green shading, and maybe then people can start asking questions about that. I'm going to talk about the cafeteria, the kitchen, and the offices next.
Okay, I actually have a question for you. I guess I'm a little confused as to why some of these rooms, and I think they were tested morning and afternoon or morning and evening, why such a big variation, like 140 and 410, in the same room? What changed?
Well, air samples are a very small snapshot in time. They're a 4-hour sample. Temperature can affect these to some degree. So during the course of the day, as the temperatures rise, the results may go up higher. That's one of the things the EPA is finding and studying right now, is that temperature can affect these. So again, when you're doing these at night and at the peak hours, you may get some higher results than when you do them in the morning. So that's one aspect. The other is that you are dealing with nanograms, which is 1/1,000,000th of a gram. So it's very small. It doesn't take much movement, disturbance to put things airborne. One other thing to mention about the airs is that the airs we're measuring air, but we also look at this building. We actually looked at dust samples throughout the building. We've taken probably over 400 dust samples. So we've looked at surface dust through the building as well. And we had a few spots here and there when they were high. We actually cleaned them, but for the most part, we had a significant pass rate on those, less than 1. So that means it's not allowed dust settled out. But again, it doesn't take much to get airborne. Again, the temperature can affect those results.
So going off of that, I mean, our students are basically there at the peak times when it's going to be the hottest during the day. Obviously, you're going to have large amounts of students walking through the building, kicking up the dust particles. That just seems like a very large difference to me. I don't know anything about air sampling in general. I just find it, not that I don't believe the number, but I guess I'm surprised to see such a big variation from the room being acceptable for the younger kids to the room not being acceptable to the younger kids in just a one-day span. So, I mean, I know this isn't the perfect science for you guys, but that's definitely something that it's a concern for me. Mike?
Just to remind you, Ms. Chairwoman, I had asked to address the assembly in the opening comments and statements, and you passed over that, and we immediately went into the information.
I apologize, Mike. I actually thought you were going to do it then, so go ahead.
I will make my announcement during the time that you see appropriate, as I had requested. My question for Mr. May is, and thank you for this data, is it possible for us to receive a compilation of all data in a spreadsheet form so that on the left-hand column will be the list of the rooms, and the ABC columns will be dates. Now, if you have to do it by the week, or if you have to do it by the day, identifying that in, for instance, room 239, we go to room 239 and we see a series of tests, because that is in line with what you're speaking to, the changes in conditions. Mm-hmm. And we will see a track and a history that room 239, maybe that was one of the test rooms done in June, July, and we'll see the progression. Because this is a snapshot, as you indicated, mm-hmm. of a window of time. I think for those of us that have limited scientific knowledge, the presentation of data is best in a compilation form, and so I'll request that.
Okay. Because we were looking to provide data in a single page format for each room, which would have that. It'd be one, what we did, the dates of any pre-abatement samples, pre-wipes, bulk samples that may have been taken, and again, every room didn't have pre-abatement samples taken, but then again, the post air, wipe, cleaning. We cleaned in wipe samples were done in 2 stages. Cleaning, once we cleaned furniture and moved it out, we tested 4 samples of furniture before we moved it out of there, and then did the work, and then we did post-cleaning samples, dust wipes of the room, and then the airs in the room. So we were going to do that on a page basis, but certainly that information, the data the lab provides, actually they give it in 2 formats, a PDF format in the report that you see, but they also give us the data in an Excel spreadsheet, so we can put that into there and put it in the formats that you're speaking of, and certainly we can do that.
Sure, and then the note pages, I think, would be the questions that come up. If my concern is from 239 and I see a decrease, well, I might want to know why. So I'll go to that room page and see that certain things were done which affected that trend, and that will substantiate the value of your services and of the cleanup services, what we did from day one and the results. So I would like to see that tie-in, and those notes, as you've indicated, would be helpful as well.
Okay.
Like Mr. May was saying, just for the benefit of everybody else, we do have the detailed reports. Obviously, they're dense and take some getting used to reading through them. I had to learn how to read them. In them, there's one area that one of the first pages in each of the reports, because they were sent in batches, and we just got some of the batches earlier today, and we'll probably be getting some tonight, probably into tomorrow. Because some of these are just verbal. Some of the stuff that I'm drawing right now, we don't even have these. So basically, we're trying to stay ahead of, or trying to catch up with the data as it comes in. We can put it in a format that's a spreadsheet that has some historical value. The information that Mr. May is talking about is the EPA wants us to provide this information room by room, so they have it as well. So eventually, once we compile all that, basically it's going through this, plus the ones that we did before, plus the wipes. These are mostly airs that you got. We'll take all that, put it together, and we can slice it and dice it any way you want. So that's not a problem. Any other questions?
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to follow
Still,
up?
just in follow-up, but again, that the Excel spreadsheet I'm looking for is room location, dates, and test levels. All the additional slice and dice is the notes you've mentioned afterwards, but I'd like to see the historical data on one spreadsheet. Thank you.
Eric.
Mr. May, with the kids hopefully starting school tomorrow, them moving around the school being opened, is that going to affect any future test levels that we need to try to get down?
Well, again, the point I was making about the wipe samples and the fact that we have cleaned in addition to, so we did, again, 400 wipe samples, and that's basically taking samples in every room, a floor and a sill sample, plus the 4 samples we've done on furniture to demonstrate the cleaning. And so the building has been cleaned, and this is after remediation. It's been done. So those samples were taken, the post samples on the floor and sill were taken afterwards. So again, the variation we're talking about, again, because you're talking about nanograms, 1/1,000,000th of a gram is very small. It doesn't take much to get airborne. But what you're looking at is, again, if you look at the building and the predominance of what you're getting, the average results, and one of the things I haven't done, which we will be doing as part of the finals, is looking at all the results, the number of samples that are, at what level, the average, the mean, and so forth, and looking at that, is that each set of these samples were taken at potentially different times. In some cases, we could duplicate samples later in the day, even shortly thereafter, once we started the first ones, to basically demonstrate what we've got in the building in terms of conditions. But so walking around the building, because we've demonstrated through the dust wipes that the building's clean, there is not a lot of PCB dust left in the building to be kicked up. Again, it's going to be minor amounts of particles.
Well, that's what's concerning them, because the different locations of all these rooms that are high, I don't have the schematic of what the air intake systems are, but I would tend to think they're all on different systems. And if we have 4 different areas getting high levels, there still might be a cause if you've already cleaned, remediated, cleaned dust particles, and we're still getting different air samples in different sections of the building. The air intakes are drawing from somewhere.
They're actually drawing from the roof or outside, so there really is no shared ventilation system between rooms. So yes, the traffic moving in, this, whatever, it could migrate, but again, we've been demonstrated that from a dust wipe standpoint, which the results aren't presented here, is that the building has been cleaned. But each room has a unit vent which draws this air from the outside. There's only an exhaust. There's an exhaust and an air intake from the inside. So each room has that. Cafeteria area, media center, some of the other areas, they actually draw from the roof. So there is no shared ventilation system for cross ventilation between rooms.
Have we identified the type of PCB yet? I know we did the testing for it. Has that data come back?
We have not received the congener-specific data yet. We did look at, there's another method to do it, and we were looking at that a little bit today, which is basically looking at the Arachlor, the type of manufactured product. And there's 2 products that were studied in Lexington. One is product 1016 and the other is 1254. In Lexington, they had product 1016, and they were able to move their result up quite a bit. This building has 1254, which does have more potential toxicity. So we're not sure where that result is going to go, but we are expecting that lab data in, and we'll be doing that calculation as soon as we get it, so that we have that as a backup. But I think the predominance is that the building, I think, from the last set of data, the verbals that we got, everything is between 450 and 300 in the building.
Except, and that's where I left the last piece here.
A lot of red.
Some areas of the office and cafeteria, kitchen area are above 450. So and there's one little room that has very little ventilation in and out of it, which may be part of the issue. Maybe, there's nowhere to ventilate it to other than straight up into the roof. So I don't know if the vent unit that's there is powerful enough to ventilate it after we cleaned it once. So my hope is that we can, and not knowing when we would get these results, I had already asked Michelle to come up with a different plan to do food for the next few days and maybe into next week, which now seems to be, good thing we planned for that. But my hope is we can re-clean the cafeteria, shut it off from the, basically the areas where you have the stairs going up into the second floor, close it off there, re-clean cafeteria and kitchen areas, vent it out, re-clean the offices, and then go and hit those rooms that are above 300 to see if we can bring them down below the threshold of 300. And then sometime this weekend, and I'll be talking with them, do another set of testing, so by the end of next week we'll have the results back, and hopefully by then the whole building will be cleared, so we can move freely about the building without any issues.
Shelby?
All right, you were first.
I don't know who to ask this question of, because I know the people who next are on the line are ours. Is this building safe to put kids in tomorrow?
I mean, based on the air concentrations, you've got all of the dust samples in terms of what EPA is putting out there as guidance documentation. That's all I could say, is that it's within the guidance of what EPA says.
Even with all those red areas above 450?
Well, the red areas, again, we've talked about areas, how to isolate those, the cafeteria, not using those areas. For students, cafeteria, kitchen area, those do need to have some cleaning done in them. But we can isolate them, still maintaining access to the stairway so the building could be safe for use.
And the other areas, the offices, and kids are only there for a minute to drop something off, if anything. Even the nurse's office came back clean, so if they need to go to the nurse's office, they can go.
You talked about you guys did all these dust wipes. You're not finding PCBs in the dust, but the PCBs in the air, aren't they attached to dust particles?
Correct, dust particles. I mean, you're never going to have zero dust. I mean, there's not a zero tolerance, and there's, for PCBs, the same thing. Even the dust levels, what EPA looks at for dust, for wipe samples, in the regulations it talks about 10 micrograms per wipe. We're actually using a lower standard, which they actually use for schools, which is 1 microgram per wipe. 1 microgram is still 1,000 times higher than a nanogram in terms of dust particle, just to give you an order of magnitude of the size. So we're getting all the dust levels below 1. But that still means there are, potential dust particles there. Some of the results, they're below 1, but they may be 0.28. So there are a lot of samples that have no PCBs on them at all, but there is going to be PCBs still left in the building. There's not a zero tolerance for PCBs. PCBs are everywhere in the environment. So what we're trying to do is obviously reduce everything we can. The building over time, you're going to see as the air is moving, the filtration systems in the building are going to work. You're going to start to see results coming down even further. That's my prediction. You're going to start to see them coming down because we've eliminated the sources of PCBs as far as what we know is in the building right now. The predominant source is the caulking being the major source on the outside of the building and inside of the building.
Some of it might have been introduced, maybe teachers bringing stuff in that they took home over the summer, and some of that be showing up again.
I mean,
but the tests were done before they went to school.
Mm-hmm. Can I do a caveat to what Bob just said? There are PCB-containing materials in the building. I don't want to portray it like we took them all out. We took out the major sources, which was the caulk. We took out the tectum ceilings, most of the tectum ceilings, and this is where I wanted to go. We did not do the stairwells again because kids are not spending a tremendous amount of time in the stairwells. They shouldn't be hanging out there at all. They're just cutting through to go upstairs or downstairs. Partly because of time, because they would have to do staging that would have to be moved from place to place in all the stairs and then taken down. We did not do, this is something that I noticed, some of the rooms had this idea way back when where they wanted to have very large rooms, and they put across some sort of like an accordion partition wall, and there is some kind of a system that hangs it off the cement ceilings, and it's encased in a box. And that box goes all the way up to the ceiling, so in many rooms you have the tectum apparently used to go all the way through from one room to the next. So where they get to that box and it hits the ceiling, they just cut it there, and they encapsulated it. But again, there's still tectum up there behind that box up there. Not that there's an easy way for it to escape out of it, but there's some in there. There's some in the windows between the metal and the actual glass. So they went through and they put a compound around the edges of the windows. Doesn't look pretty. Obviously they put a bead and then moved it around with their fingers because you can see the finger wipes. So there's still, and there's still materials that may have, like Tony said, there could be some in the dust. Materials were moved out of the rooms. If it was a bookshelf, it was vacuumed. The bookshelf went out. Bookshelf comes back as people start moving the books around on the bookshelves. Could some of that get stirred up? I'm sure it can. Will it bounce the levels up beyond the threshold of the EPA? We don't know that yet. Again, this is not. My hope is that we establish a baseline that's below the thresholds, and then as we go through the building, doing the spot checks every quarter, if we find areas that have high elevated numbers, we re-clean. I mean, we bought some HEPA bags, pretty much the same ones that the Triumvirate was using, so we can do some cleaning of our own. We can do some wipes, regular wipes. That's basically what they would be doing anyway. Mopping floors, wiping down desks or flat surfaces. I didn't know we had a storm coming.
One thing that had been mentioned a while back, and could this maybe be a source if it was something as well, is the floor tiles. Obviously, we didn't remove the floor tiles, we removed the carpets, but did we ever find out if that has PCB in the glue? And is that, or could that be an additional source that we haven't even looked at?
We've not been tested for PCBs. We did test it for asbestos because we were actually pulling the carpets up and so there was a belief, but we did not test it for PCBs. But we had actually, in some cases, where the carpet was, because my understanding is the building was predominantly carpet, is we actually had demonstrated by covering carpet and seeing, and there wasn't a major significant difference in those samples. So we
In the carpet?
Correct.
But
we haven't physically tested any
So
of the
we don't
rest.
know. I mean, I guess it could potentially be another source of contaminants for some of these rooms, maybe?
Well, there's not that much carpet left. There's a little bit of carpet going into the 5th grade area. I think it's the 5th grade area.
No, but
right?
the glue for the tile, the glue that
glue
sticks
for
the
the tile.
Because I know that was mentioned throughout our discussions that potentially the glue that sticks the tiles to the floor could also have PCB-containing materials. I'm just wondering if that could be a potential source as well in these rooms, because I know, I mean, personally, I don't like shifting kids around and saying this room is safe for you, this room is safe for you. That's just my personal opinion. I'd like to see all these rooms under 300. Whether we'll see that or not, I don't know. But I still question how these numbers are shifting so much. If we were told 90% of the PCB materials would be removed. To me, that would say, well, we're going to get these numbers significantly lower. And some of them are significantly lower. But we still have a question mark of where is this stuff coming from? If, I heard, I think it was Ross that told me, what did you tell me, a football field and a half of PCB material was removed and 4 miles of caulking? I mean, that seems absurd to me. I would think with that kind of removal, we would have everything under and have a lot of green here. And I think, like Eric said, I don't like the orange and the red here.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
The cafeteria, which has a high level, Dr. Cully had mentioned there's still some tectum up on the wall. When we toured the school a few days ago, when you walk from the teacher's room into the cafeteria, that's where it was cut back. That it could, I'm sure it is the reason. I mean, we have high levels in there. There's still tectum up on the wall there. That I don't know how you're going to get into that crevice that's there, but you've now peeled back a lot of it, so it's actually more exposed now. And
But it's also been encapsulated. I mean, we didn't leave anything exposed like just bare mastic.
now, when was that encapsulated? Because we were just there yesterday, and that was quite exposed.
That's all painted. It was all encapsulated.
Where the tectum was between, remember when we walked out of the teacher's room, looked up on the right-hand side, and it was just cut back. It was a jagged edge cut.
Well, it is a jagged edge cut because of the tectum material itself.
Yeah, it just broke off in different, it didn't break off clean, I'm sure, but
What you guys use, like a Sawzall? It's going to be like
you're
that.
walking into the cafeteria from the
Mike.
teacher's room.
There's now 4 people speaking, so being recognized, thank you, Ms. Chairperson. I just wanted to point out that the contractor is in the audience. We're asking questions of the testing company. If he's not comfortable, perhaps we should call on the specialist from Triumvirate.
I walked in late.
Go ahead, Ross.
Go right ahead.
That was all I was saying. So you
Oh, no, the tectum that was still left on the ceiling between the teacher's room in the red area and into the cafeteria. As soon as you get into the cafeteria, if you look straight up, there's a lot of tectum. But it's inside the crevice, but it's all been broken off, which is probably a contributing factor on why that's getting high levels and we can't use the cafeteria.
I think everything's been encapsulated that we saw, that we had to leave the tectum behind. We encapsulated with essentially the bridging compound in the ABC. I don't take this the wrong way, but I think we're speculating why certain areas are coming up, why this last area had come up high. I think we need to keep something in mind, and Bob and I have talked about this. We had to perform surgery on this building. We removed all of the material that we knew had contaminated material. We have then gone in immediately after we performed that removal and taken air samples. It's like having surgery, getting up off the emergency room and walking out. All of the other areas that you see that have green on, we allowed the rooms to ventilate a little bit, to breathe a little bit. We cleaned. We allowed the air handlers to run for 24 hours. And then we went in and Bob took the air samples. That area that came up high was the last area that we did. That was the last area to be broken down. We were under an incredible amount of pressure to finish the job by Friday. It was broken down. The air units were turned on, and then we took a sample. And I think going back and re-cleaning is a formality. I walked through there right before I came here, and I didn't see much at all in the form of dust. I think you go through the formality of perhaps re-cleaning the surfaces. You let the air handlers run. You try to allow the building to breathe a little bit, and you go back and retake the samples and see what happens. I think, look, we did the pilot test. We've seen positive results from the work that had been done based on the initial readings, the readings that they are right now. So we've made progress on this building. The problem that we had is there was absolutely no time from when we finished to even allow it. We don't even have the samples back then in order to make decisions about how many kids come back to school. So I think we need to use science, we need to use logic, we need to use EPA guidance in order to make sound decisions on what's going on here. The samples came up higher than we all like, and there isn't anybody more disappointed than that in me. But the fact of the matter is, there's not much that we can do about it. All of the materials that we can take out safely, without jeopardizing structural components of the building, we're removing. So now, if we find that we have elevated levels, let's be smart about it. Let's go back in, let's re-clean, let's take another sample, and allow the air to exchange within the minute. You can take another sample of this and find that it drops below 300, and it's a mute issue. I also think if you take a look at some of the areas that failed, there's not much ventilation in those areas. There's no ventilation.
And I think one other thing is when we start to look at some of the results, if you look at the actual numbers and some of the results, I mean, we're not talking just under 300. We're talking we've had results as low as 39. So that's a significant drop, or zero, non-detect. So, I mean, that's the other thing to consider. So, yes, you're getting variation room to room, which,
Point
again...
of order.
Mike?
There's a question that was put forward. The question was answered. I appreciate the experts being here. I'm quite concerned of the extension of this conversation. We've gone from a question asking about the gap between the wall and the ceiling, where there's Tectum and PCB adhesive left, and how we address it. We've then extended this conversation into surgical procedures, analogies, where we are, where we've gone. I want to remind this assembly that we made a motion that authorized the superintendent to implement and approved the motion to implement control measures to address the sources of PCP contamination in the Westport Middle School. That was based on a presentation, not a bid, by the way, even though it had the title bid well documented in that presentation. We were corrected and told it's not a bid, it's a cost-plus presentation. Now that presentation should have all the references we're discussing now, how and why. But that conversation is between the superintendent of schools and the professionals. We might have some questions, but I don't think we should revisit the who, what, why over the past month. We received a presentation. We asked, will this provide us with safe school buildings for our school system on Labor Day? We were told yes. We asked the superintendent to choose which of the two contractors would proceed. Now, if they're surgeons or they're contractors, I don't think right now is the time for this conversation. I thank you for answering the question, and I would ask that we move on to the next question, that we as school committee...
Do you have a question?
Yes, could
Go
we
ahead.
continue the discussion rather than any other contractual provisions, because I have not seen the contract. I've seen a proposal. We authorized a contract. I haven't seen the contract. I've seen a letter referencing the contract but I haven't seen the actual contract, so...
This is an update on the Westport Middle School test results, and I feel that they are helping us with that
I'm not
information.
going to argue with you. I cannot be part of a conversation of a contract I did not see, and whether it makes reference to the procedural and who's responsible for delivering a clean building.
Do you have a specific question for the gentlemen that are here, Mike, regarding the building and the cleanup?
I'm asking you as chair to maintain the conversation based on
I
the
haven't
questions
seen any
as chair.
issues with, I think his analogy, to be quite honest, I am a visual person.
I'm not asking
Your
you. I've
well,
made my statement.
Mike,
That's not a question for you.
His
as
analogy was
chairwoman.
helpful to me. So, and if it was helpful to me, perhaps it was helpful to somebody else here. Perhaps not.
You're entitled to an opinion.
Absolutely.
I don't have a question. You can move on.
Eric.
With what you explained, should we delay school till Monday or start school tomorrow?
That is not, I would leave that up to the superintendent.
In the conversations that you guys have you given guidance to say, I could really like 2 extra days to get this to where I could put my head on the pillow at night and say these kids are safe? Have you had those conversations?
May I answer that?
Sure.
Because I do come prepared to make a recommendation, which is not different from what we had the last time. What we've been shooting for all along is to get the rooms below the ETA standards so that we can bring in the kids and say, hey, they can be in the rooms. They can go through a normal school day. At this point, if you look at all the classrooms, I've already spoken with Mr. Simonello. The few classrooms that we're scheduled to have 5th and 6th grade kids that are a little high, that we can clean, retest by next week, those moves can be done for a week at the most. We figure if we can get the testing done by this weekend, because again, we don't want to do it while the kids are sitting in the classrooms, but if we can get them done by this weekend, get them to the labs by Monday, we should have the results by Thursday at the latest. But we can continue in this mode for quite a bit of time. The only area that we can't use, or that I wouldn't feel comfortable using, that would be my recommendation, is the cafeteria. At this point, talking to Mrs. Raposa, we have a plan to be able to bring in, bag lunches, sandwiches, fruit, milk that can be ready to go beginning tomorrow. So we got the gym and the auditorium, which I didn't even know we were going to get those, and the media center ready, so we can use them as places where kids can gather at least in the morning to because tomorrow they get their schedules and they find out where their rooms are. We can use them also for lunch, so we have more areas to use than I even thought was going to be possible. I would say we can start tomorrow, and then hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have the results for the cafeteria and kitchen area. That'll open that area up, and maybe we can get most of these other results that are above, 300 down to 300, and we won't have to worry about it. Then all it is kind of the same plan we had, which is monitor every quarter, take a sample of the rooms. If people want to get in on, what rooms should we sample, we can figure that out. Because we're going to sample a quarter of the rooms every quarter, so.
Mike?
My question, and it's in line with what I'm attempting to establish for this meeting, and reference was just made to a goal of clean classrooms. Not my recollection. My goal has always been a clean building. I believe the contract, the presentation, and if it's become clean classrooms, not an entire clean building, that's news. So let's not gloss over making such a statement. Our goal as a school committee was to have a clean building, okay? Anything short of that is worth highlighting in this conversation. I, for one, am not comfortable with anything but a clean building. And the monitoring, I understood that was going to be part of the ongoing process. I did not anticipate. Excuse me? Are we going to have a three-way
No, we're not,
conversation?
because Jim is
My
done.
question is,
You're
at what
still-
date
you
did
still
the
have the
goal
floor.
change from a clean building to clean student classroom space? That's news. So when
Are you
did we-
addressing that to Dr. Colley?
That's correct.
As far as I'm concerned, I understand that the whole building is not clean.
The question is
Please.
for a date. No, I have a question. And
I
it's-
do
Let
not
him
have
answer
an
that?
answer for you,
So
Mr.
did the
Sullivan.
original
You're-
presentation-
You're actually,
Was the original presentation to clean the whole building or classroom space?
well, let me put it this way. How about we go back to July, when I presented this as an option, and we spent all the way until August 10th
Okay.
worrying about whether this company, that company, this option, that
Was-
option.
was the
And-
this
and
a clean
all I'm
building
saying
or
is,
clean classroom
you
space?
asked, why is it not done yet? It's because we delayed for 3 weeks.
You've said that, and
And
I
I'm
believe
gonna say
that's
it
One
again.
person
So
at
we
a
had
time,
the extra
one
week,
person
we
at a
haven't
time.
delayed
Mr.
yet.
Sullivan, one person at a time, please. Let him finish the question.
We
He
didn't go
never
on
finishes
vacation.
the
Eric,
questions.
please.
We didn't go on
Let him-
The
vacation.
question is,
Please.
what date did we
In the middle of all
change
this. We
the
didn't go on
goal?
vacation.
What
get order
date did
back.
we change this project from clean building to clean classroom?
Mr. Sullivan,
That's
this is the
question.
last time I'm going to ask you.
That's the question.
I understand,
So
and
what's the date?
give him a chance to answer the question. And if he doesn't, I will let
Okay,
you rebut
well,
it.
I'd like to
Please give him a chance.
He's
Just give
already
him a chance. I'm asking you for the last time. Please give him a chance. And Eric, I will let you speak when he's done as well.
Absolutely.
Dr. Colley,
I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Because it has never
I have
been
a
a
rebuttal.
change.
go right ahead.
My rebuttal is, going back to that period of time when you reference a delay, was the original July conversation classroom space or a building? I didn't know this changed, okay? I don't see any delays in terms of doing diligence in looking at the project to get a building clean. But now we're having a conversation of a different project, clean space, classroom space, and I just don't know when that changed. And I don't know, maybe I wasn't perceiving it correctly in July, because you've referenced the July period.
May I respond? Mrs. Chairman?
Go
May
ahead.
I respond? In July, I made a recommendation that we proceed with cleaning the building, doing the abatement, and perhaps, if we had done it at that point in time,
You may respond.
we would have had the additional time to do the additional cleaning, to have enough time to break down the barriers at the cafeteria, which was the last area done. We would have had enough time to send off, to let the building ventilate, send off the samples to the lab, and we would not be here wishing we had another extra week. I've said this all along. Yes, I understand the idea of due diligence. The school committee asked, should we consider sending them off to other places? After me talking to Dartmouth, I suggested not, but people insisted they wanted that looked as an option. I understand that. Then we asked, should we look at trailers? I said, based on my experience in Nantucket, I suggested it probably would be too expensive. But people insisted we wanted to look at that. So if in July we had gone with my recommendation to just go ahead and do it, we would not be sitting here. So yes, I would say when we gave them less time than they needed to do this job, that's why we're where we are. So I guess, to me, that's when it changed. When we did not give them enough time to do the work they needed to do. And now, we're trying to find a way to give them enough time by using the rest of the building, which is clean, so that we can have the students in without any more delays, without affecting the calendar, without affecting their studies. And that way, we can simply provide them a bag lunch for a week, and hopefully we'll be back to operations as normal.
Mr. Sullivan?
The July date you're referencing to, is it July 18th, when you made the recommendation?
18 or 28, I don't recall. All I know is in July.
I know I made a motion on July 18th that you recommended we not have as a motion was to initiate the cleaning of the buildings. You recommended a pilot study, which we authorized to go forward. That took some time, but that was at your recommendation. So I just didn't know the date. So thank you.
Mr. Larrabee?
I just need to make a statement. I don't like being thrown under the bus. I think we've tried to call many meetings, and we haven't been able to have meetings. Been told we can't do it, we can't do this, we can't do that. We did have a period of time where our superintendent was out of the state on vacation. We were waiting for studies to come back. So for me to be thrown under the bus, we've tried to have meetings, we've tried to push this along, and I'm not going to get thrown underneath the bus. We've tried many times. You know, I've been texting you consistently, trying to ask for meetings. I asked for one last week. Can't have it. So I just need to have that said.
Can I respond?
You may.
On Friday, I was out of the state. I did go to visit family.
Back in August, in July.
Okay. I'm referencing this Friday where people asked for a meeting, and I said it was unnecessary because we didn't have the results back. So if that's what you're referring to as one of the instances, then I will say yes. I said it wasn't necessary.
I'd actually like to ask that we bring this back to what we're here for. We are here for an update on the middle school, and we have gotten way off base here. So, Mr. Sullivan, if your question or comment...
we were thrown under the bus saying it was...
And I let you rebut that.
My question
I did let you rebut that.
My question has to do with this discussion that's regarding the middle school. Okay.
Regarding an update on the middle school?
My question has to do with this discussion.
I'm asking this discussion to stop right now because this is not what this meeting is about. This meeting, Mike, is about, Mr. Sullivan, is about an update on the middle school, and I'd like to bring it back to that because we have 550 students ready to walk in that door tomorrow, and we need to make sure that that building is safe for those students, and we need to make sure that they are going to be going to the appropriate rooms and that they will be safe in those rooms. That's our duty as the school committee for this particular meeting.
Chairman, thank you for your dissertation.
Will we get enough dissertation from you, Mr. Sullivan? So does this have to do with...
It has to do with information that was on this blotter when I got here today.
Then go ahead and ask your question.
The information that I didn't have a chance to look at, and you're restricting this conversation to. So
I am restricting the conversation to the update on the Westport Middle School test results,
right.
Which is what we are here for.
Clear that this school committee had no information before this meeting, so we're going to have a discussion. The discussion has gone back to talk about the time frame, and once again, we're at a meeting without information before the meeting. So
I believe an email went out this afternoon, did it not, giving information about the test results, and we have been updated by Dr. Colley by email on the test results, Mr. Sullivan.
Any meetings, our policy is to have 3 days beforehand of information.
48 hours.
The trend is that we don't receive any...
48 hours for a regular school committee meeting. These have been special meetings. These are not...
That's the open meeting policy.
Mr. Sullivan, if you continue, I'm going to ask you to leave. Please.
Our policy...
Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Okay, when I'm going to refuse to leave, okay? And...
I'd like to recess this meeting, please, for 5 minutes so everybody can take a second to cool down.
I'm cool. I'm just trying to ask...
Dr. Colley, can I call this meeting back to order while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing?
I'd like to make a motion.
Can I call the meeting back to order first?
I thought you just did.
Call the meeting back to order, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
What's your motion, Mike?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone the opening of the building until we have either a totally clean building or an approved plan from EPA to occupy the building with segregated sections of the building.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second, just because in the discussion, what those two questions I asked you
Sure.
will be very important.
Could we,
Could I start discussion on
go
my
ahead, Mike,
motion?
you made the motion.
Thank you. I thought it was a good way to frame the conversation around what we're here to speak of. Are we opening school or are we not? The question and concerns have been put forward, so the motion was in order to direct the further discussion towards a decision that has to be made. I appreciate that a motion's allowed because there is not an action section on the agenda. Going forward with the discussion, we have a section of the building which needs to either be quarantined. We have not seen a plan for quarantine. I'm not going back to any other dates. Okay, we had that conversation. As of today, as of what I have on my blotter, I don't see a plan for quarantine. If we can go forward with, during this discussion section, on the superintendent's plan to segregate a section of the building and open the rest, that would be an option. But right now, in the lack of that, my motion is to not open the building until we have that. Now, if we have that in an hour, we can...
Tony?
Look, Ross was explaining on why those results are probably high. Let the guy speak. It's an informational meeting. We're trying to get the information out. How can there be too much information?
One thing I
Hold
would
on,
like-
one at a time, please. One at a time,
That was
please.
the question.
Tony, you asked him a question?
That was the last area to be cleaned. Not enough time was given for, the air to change. I'm confident the next results are going to come back like the rest of the school.
Two things, though. We were told not to speculate, so I'm not going to speculate that the rooms will come back clean, because we've already told tonight, do not speculate, make assumptions. And we were also confident back when this process started that everything would come back, because we did pilot studies, everything would come back below. So I can't go on, I hope so, I'm planning on, I expect it to be. We have parents in the audience. Actually, we have the school nurse in the audience and some teachers. I'd like to hear from them on how they feel about sending their children, their students, into a school with a large section, very large section of the school above the levels.
Are there any teachers that are willing to come up?
May I say something before we open that?
Go ahead.
There was a question about cordoning or isolating a part of the building off. I think we should, at least get that answered before we open it up to major discussion as to how people feel, because the rest of the building is below the thresholds. So if we want to talk about, what's the issue with that section of the building, we can talk about that section of the building. I have a problem with that. But I think we should at least, it is true that at, 15 minutes before this meeting, we get a verbal that, that area is not ready, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. That is the nature of calling an additional meeting not scheduled, waiting for results to come, and the results coming at the last minute. So I apologize, but perhaps we can listen from them as to what the plan would be to isolate that part. And I think we can take a peek over here, and if I understand correctly, would be to close off here and here.
Point of clarification on the
and
motion.
there won't be anybody going through that.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Parliamentary privilege with clarification of the motion.
Go ahead, Mike.
I appreciate putting that back up, because my concerns and my reference in the motion was these orange sections as well. So through the information that's been presented, should I not be concerned with these orange sections? I thought we were still a no-go on some of these sections.
The orange
because
sections.
300 was our goal. I see those still as not. So my motion was to close the building until we have green throughout.
Including the orange?
Green.
Including the, okay, go ahead.
That was clarification.
I would just want to clarify what the orange means. The orange actually is a result between, it's greater than 300, but it's less than 450. And you have two age groups within the building.
I understand that.
Those are
but
both EPA guidance concentrations. They're not a standard, they're not a regulation, they are guidance concentrations, and EPA has not closed this building. Basically, this is, we did the work over the summer based on the pilot results, and I did want to clarify also on the pilot was 2 rooms where we did not take all exterior caulking out. We did not take out some other materials. So we did actually do more disturbance during this, which also can affect the results. We took out the exterior caulking, which over time, again, we're removing the major source of caulk, 300,000 parts per million of PCBs. We did not do that 100% on the windows in the pilot. So this also, time, cleaning, and so forth is what we're looking at. We can't directly relate this to the pilot because we didn't do the same exact things. We did more than we did in the pilot.
Do you have a follow-up on that?
No, the clarification on the motion
Was to include the orange areas.
is based on having not seen the contract, but the assumption is that the goal of the agreement was to have the building all green.
Under 300.
And I can appreciate any additional detail that may be in any agreements that we haven't seen, but the goal is to, rather than shifting, all green.
Eric?
Just want to bring up a point that was, I think you, Madam Chair, had mentioned that you wanted to see all rooms under 300 yourself.
That
was the
my
standard that we
ultimate
set,
goal.
was 300. I just need to remind everyone that's what we set for a
Absolutely.
goal for ourselves. EPA says 450, but we have fifth graders walking through other sections of the building. So we had set for ourselves a 300 threshold.
And I absolutely agree with that. I don't feel, and I said it tonight, I don't feel comfortable using these rooms that are not under what we had set for our standards. I don't feel comfortable shifting 7th and 8th graders to those rooms because they're, and that's just my personal opinion, and I stated that earlier.
Yeah, well, I just want to
Absolutely.
remind, that's...
I have a question, though, regarding the quarantining of the cafeteria area, which is above the 450 level regardless. How would that be done? What would that look like? I can't visualize that.
Well, similar to how you would do a containment for asbestos, we would build barriers up to isolate that area so no people could go in or out of that area other than the workers through.
What would that be made out of?
Typically, for area across the hallway there, we'd actually have to do some type of furring, whether it's a wood or metal studded system across there, and then polyethylene sheeting. So that area could be isolated and the cleaning could be undertaken. We would probably discuss with EPA whether we'd do the cleaning during school hours or actually wait until after hours or weekends to do it, but essentially we could isolate that area off so that there would be no access to that area. That's the initial plan that we had kind of kicked around.
Okay, because I think I was envisioning plastic, but that's not what you're talking about.
Both plastic, but also...
Oh, is that what the polyethylene sheeting is?
Polyethylene
See,
sheeting.
I told you I don't know what I'm talking about with that. Tony, did you have a question? You just kind of had your hand up. Do we have any other questions here before we ask? Are there any teachers that would like to speak? I know Mrs. Elpap, come on up.
I don't think Mr.
Would it be
Simonello
helpful
wants
to
to
repeat the motion that we're discussing so we can limit the...
If you'd like to do that, Mike, go right ahead.
I'm asked, it might be helpful as anyone's coming forward to hear what the motion is that we are discussing. If
Karen, can you repeat the motion?
Karen to...
You made a motion to postpone the opening of the building until totally a clean building or approved plan to occupy building, and then you stipulated closed until all green.
Eric?
Right. So again, and the clean building reference was below 300.
Under 300. Eric?
Can I ask one more question before we just get to her?
Go right ahead.
Dr. Colley, with the new results that have come out now that we have some areas that are high, have you today or any plans on contacting the Department of Education on whether we can waiver some of these days? Now, you said no that you contacted them before. No, because it wasn't an emergency. We planned on cleaning. Now we have an emergency. It's a day before school opens. Our test results are high. We've now become in an exigent circumstance. Can they now waive some of our days for the start of the school year?
I will just simply say what they already said to me once, which is basically it's early enough in the year. The school committee can adjust the schedule for the school, so you still need 180 days. I mean, whether they would consider this an emergency or not, it would be entirely up to them.
Can we have that conversation with them, though, just to...
I can do that.
Mr. Sullivan?
Just as a result of that input, I want to know from our secretary, the clerk, was my motion to postpone the opening of the building or to postpone school start date?
No, you said building.
Right. So I just want to reemphasize that we've been told there's a backup plan. We've been told there's a shifting plan into the high school and into the Macomber. We haven't gotten to that yet, and I want to frame the conversation. But the motion is in reference to how we use this building, not school days for the students. I recognize we may be here longer to discuss that, but it's the building that we're discussing.
Mr. Simnella or Mrs. Delpap, whoever would like to speak first.
Did you want to know what the orange rooms are going to be used for, just so you have a better clarification of
that would
what
be
goes into
helpful.
those rooms?
That would be helpful.
Okay. If you look at the bottom portion of the map, and that is in the media center, room 255 and 257. That is, room 257 is a server room where the computer server is kept. No children ever go into that room. It's locked at all times. Room 255 is Mr. McDonald's, the school librarian. That's his office. Again, no children ever go into that room. No, 250, that's the...
These plans aren't that good.
Okay. It's the back room.
That's
Okay, which is a different number on my chart than up there, but that's his office. All those orange areas are areas that children do not go into and can't go into. As you go down, room 264, that is the in-school suspension room. That right now is slated to not be used by anybody right now. 263, that's the speech and language pathologist. They're being moved out of there, so no one will be in that room either. On the first floor, I'm just looking at the orange spaces. Dr. Colley's already explained 107, that teacher has moved out to a different location. Teacher in room 108 has moved out to a different location, and teacher in room 110 has also moved out to a different location. And the teacher in room 171, she has also moved out to a different location. So none of those rooms.
Green one? Green location?
Green locations, yes. They have all moved into green
This one?
locations.
This one? It's green, but it had an average of 275. And the one right next to it, 110. And then 171.
So there are no students going into any of those rooms that have orange in them at all. The red rooms, obviously, no one will be going into. Okay? Does that help clarify anything?
And 283 has also moved out.
I'm sorry, the art room? Yes, she's moved out into a green room also.
But that's, did we get a verbal say that was fine 15 minutes prior, the art room?
The art room is between 300 and 450.
Okay, because I thought you said he had a verbal right before that was safe. Okay.
Yep.
It was,
No,
I
the
think
one
he
that's
said it was
safe
safe
is
for 7 to 8.
279.
Okay,
279.
So right now, she is holding art in a green room,
okay.
so that's fine.
So none of the students, as of, if they went into school tomorrow, none of our students would be going into the room that is orange or red. They would all be going into a level under 300.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Delpop?
Even though they're not going into those rooms, we as a staff have concerns about putting students in this building. The red section that we have, if you had the rest of the week, is that time that you could re-clean that without students in this building, without having to do it at night and rush again?
The rest of the week, we had the rest of the week, and the rest students were involved.
Right.
And then we had
Doing it right.
Russ,
Because it seems like one of the things that was commented was that, and we understand that it was a rush at the end. So, and that was the last section. So if you had that time, those, till the end of this week, we just as a staff, we're in there too. And there's a 300 room that, 154, there's a 6th grader in that room, and that's at 300. And it's green. Nathaniel is 6th grade. I don't know. We have reservations. You asked if we had comments.
thank you.
Our
Thank you.
comments
Thank
is that
you.
we really do.
Thank
We
you.
want everyone safe, including ourselves. You know, we're in those rooms, and we're in the rooms 6 hours. We're not in the rooms 1 hour. There's those orange all over the place. What about the hallways?
You want to
You
talk
know?
about the few hallway samples that we did take?
Yeah, we did a couple of hallways. We didn't do everywhere. We did have one that was very low, like I think it was like 91, so it was very low. And you don't get, there's not a lot of materials in the hallways as far as there was no tectum in the hallways. There was some caulking here and there, but we didn't sample all of the hallways, but those that we did were very low.
And another question about the red room, that's the music room, which is the little blurb of red there near the auditorium. That doesn't have windows, so why is that one so high?
I mean, that's a question. We have to look at that room. We did look at the ventilation system. It draws from the roof. We're not quite sure what is in there. We didn't do a lot of work in there either. There was a carpet that was pulled out of there.
Can I stop you for just 1 second? I must have missed that number. What did that one come back at?
I don't know, because that was one of the verbals, so I
Yeah,
know
we're
it's
just
about
getting, we got
450.
verbals that they
Okay.
were hot.
Okay, I must have missed that in the process. Okay.
That's why I stuck the little red in there.
So those are our comments, is that we'd rather, and I know we don't have the choice, give them the time before you put us in there to try and get the red at least orange instead of red.
Thank you. Thank you. Tony, and then Dr. Colley.
Also need 5 days from the time we start cleaning to get the test results back.
The issue with lab tests, just to address the timing, is that typically labs are Monday through Friday. So we made a push to get them to work over the holiday weekend. We didn't see, probably 1 or 2 of those days, they had difficulty getting the staff, so we did not get results over the course of the weekend, which we had hoped. We also had lost a couple of days just in the work trying to get all of the samples out. Our last samples were actually collected Friday night, hand-delivered to the lab on Saturday morning, and that started the clock. So typically it is 3 days, 3 working days, 3 full working days for lab results. So again, we can make a push for them to work. It's not a holiday weekend. Maybe they could do it if we get it cleaned. But we had talked about possibly some of these areas looking at cleaning, giving it the time to settle sometime over the weekend if we started cleaning Friday night, Saturday, and then taking the results and then getting the full 3 days with the lab where they have to get those results in.
Dr. Colley and then Eric.
That's fine.
When we talk about the cafeteria area, would you do it any differently if there were people in the building or not, in terms of the cleaning? If we block off access to that whole area, we'd be coming in and out of the loading area, is my thought. So whether people are in the building or not, you could clean over the next few days, have it ready for the lab to do the testing over the weekend and send it out. We can do the orange rooms at night after the staff and the kids leave, room by room, since most of them not going to be used anyway, other than, they have some materials in there that people may need to go get. Can we clean those in the evening and have all those areas that are red or orange ready to be tested by Monday? Or the test done over the weekend so we can deliver on Monday? Monday deliver, figure Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we get the results back. So delaying a couple of days, you're still not going to get the cafeteria numbers back until Thursday of next week.
Eric.
have you guys already put up barriers? If we're starting school tomorrow, if I went to the middle school tonight, it's totally quarantined off. It's done. Okay.
I just want to remind too that Mike's motion is actually not to delay the start of school. It's to not open the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So Mike's motion plans to send the students to school tomorrow somewhere else. Am I understanding the motion? I want to get it clear in my head.
There has been reference in previous meetings, and I don't want to stray from your regulations for our discussion, but there was a Plan B for relocating students. I would imagine we would lead into that discussion.
I wanted to, and that's part of this, Mike.
Let me answer your question.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, not to open the building and to follow the Plan B that has been referenced previously.
Dr. Colley.
Plan B involved thinking that we may get some classrooms that would not come back below 300 or 450, that we would shift sixth grade here to the high school because we have 5 rooms downstairs that can be shifted within the building here and then bring the sixth grade over here. My recommendation is that we don't use the orange rooms till they get clean and we get results back, that we not bring the kids up here to the high school if we don't have to, and just simply use a different method of providing lunch to the students so we can give Triumvirate a chance to clean that area that's in red and get the results back by next week. And we can start school tomorrow.
Any comments?
I think we need to get the kids in school. I think we can quarantine the building. We've been using it for 40 years. If someone asked me, I would send my child to that school tomorrow. I don't mind. My kids are in 1st and 3rd grade. If they were going to the middle school tomorrow, I would send them.
My thought. Do you have a rebuttal for that? Or
No,
go ahead, Mike.
You would
Go
ask
ahead,
if
and
anyone else. I put
go
my
ahead,
hand up.
and I'll speak
Sometimes
after
you
you.
see it, sometimes you don't.
Well, it was your left hand, Mike. I'm sorry. I missed that one. Go ahead. You can speak first, and then I will go.
My concern, and we've discussed it, we've discussed ventilation systems. We've discussed that for the past month. I was under the impression that all ventilation systems are self-contained room by room. Now, when I see this corridor,
Lower left.
You mean the ends of the cafeteria?
room 107 seems to be a section of a room. Is that air, because this gets into this quarantine, which I've indicated I may be in favor of a quarantine if it's approved, but if 107 is physically quarantined, is there shared ventilation with the other building, or is it a window unit? Because my limited knowledge of ventilation, sometimes
Tony, let Mike finish, please.
Sometimes there's a zone, so would we just shut down any shared ventilation as part of the quarantine? Or is there some air movement from green to orange and certainly red?
Well, I think, again, to address what are we isolating? We're isolating orange areas, which are at 450, to get them down to 300, or just cleaning, or just those that are over 450. If we're going to isolate all orange, anything that's over 350 or 300, that room is one we have to look at. There is some openness to it between, but it does have its own independent unit. The rooms at the end of the hallway there, which is 106, has its own independent unit. I'd have to look at 104 and 105. But again, I'd have to look at those units to see. But 107 definitely has its own unit.
So if we shut off entry into the buildings so the person couldn't go into the building, then we may be able to also shut the airflows so there's not airflow through a ventilation system or not. I have no idea what the ventilation system is for the building. My concern is if we're circulating air, although we're not letting people into sections, red or orange, has that been looked at? To me, that would be part of this quarantine plan that I think we...
Russ, can we do that?
Well, that just leads me to the cafeteria. If we're going to, that's a large area. Is that their own ventilation for the cafeteria, or is that going to be shared with green areas? And if we're going to shut down the ventilation, are the kids sitting in the green areas now going to be sitting in a stagnant room with no airflow, and their levels are going to be going up?
The cafeteria has its own ventilation systems throughout, which draw their roof from the air, air from the roof. They are independent. The only thing we'd have to look at is the hallways. I believe the hallways are only exhausted. I don't think they even have an air system. I believe they draw the air from the actual classroom. So if we isolate those, it's something I'd have to work with Mike Duarte, and we had brought a mechanical engineer from my Connecticut office in to look at this, and we can try and evaluate that as well and see where we're at. But we have
by tomorrow morning.
You have to make an attempt, sure.
I'd just like to say that I've been in the building. The teachers, I think, have done a wonderful job keeping their spirits up, getting their rooms ready. I feel comfortable sending my 7th grader to school tomorrow, knowing that they're not going into orange rooms or red areas. That's just my personal opinion. There's 4 different opinions sitting up here. But again, that's just my own thoughts. Does anybody else have any comments on Mike's motion, which is to... Karen, can you just read it one more time, please?
To postpone opening of the building until totally clean under 300, or approve plan to occupy building, and then you said later closed until all green.
Can I have one more question?
Go ahead.
I got your whole theory on cleaning this and that, and that you're very confident and all that. If we gave 2 days, I know you need 5 days, you won't get test results back till Thursday. If we cut this down the middle, gave 2 days to clean, test, I know the results won't come back, but we still quarantine that area for Monday start of school. You can still clean it, do what you have to, quarantine it correctly, and at least it's going to be, if you're confident it's going to be clean, then Monday I would feel more confident. I'm not confident today that it's clean, obviously. But just buy us a little bit of time. I think that'll make the teachers a little bit more happy, and parents, that they're going to send their kids to school on Monday with the clean.
I just want to remind you that Mike's motion is...
Oh, I know.
...is to not to delay school. It's not to delay school.
Okay, mute point. No, that's...
And I just wanted to clarify that the motion includes the or, which we could discuss after the motion passes or needs to be revisited, the options, an approved plan. We've sat here discussing what we're going to do if we open the building. Well, we might quarantine it, polyethylene sheeting, i.e. plastic, fairing, wooden boards, ventilation system, what's going on with that. How about the fire department? Do they have to be contacted if we're going to start to close sections off? I'm trying to be a good guy here, but I don't see an option B for what we've been handed today. I'm not pointing fingers. We have a reality check. We have a building that isn't totally green, which was our goal. So either we're going to not use the building, if we follow this motion, or we're going to use the building with an approved quarantine plan. I know I said an EPA. Yeah, I'd be comfortable. You know the guidelines at EPA. If you say that this quarantine, the building with these rooms segregated, is the plan, and you believe that EPA would approve our going into the building, I'm all for it. But I'm not hearing that here. I'm hearing a lot of probably and maybe. So I'm asking. I am asking for a little bit more focus on if we use the building, are we closing doors and putting a sign? No, because I know we're putting some plastic somewhere. I still have concern about the ventilation and the fire exits. Just want to know what we're approving, that's all.
The fire exits are actually, it's a very good point. Have we,
They're all good points, Chairman, I'd remind you.
The fire exits are the stairwells. If we close off the area that is the cafeteria, you would still have access to the fire exits, which are the stairwells.
okay. Is there any more discussion on Mike's motion, which is, or just remind not to delay school? Mr. Sidonello, do you have a comment on this?
I just want to ask a clarifying question. The offices, okay, are all in red because they're positive, they're greater than 450, okay? Are we quarantining the offices also?
You have to.
His motion would not open the building.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
Period.
outside
Kids don't
his-
go to the office?
His
You're
motion.
just
I'm
asking in
clarifying
general.
Because I never
Mr.
heard
Early?
it said, you would put the plastic sheets around the cafeteria, I understand. I'm just wondering, are you going to do the same for the offices area?
Kids go to the office.
We could lock it off at the corner of the nurses area and the office entrance itself, right across there.
And then that begs the question, how do the children get to the nurse's office? I know
Through
there's
the
a side
hallway,
door.
through the hallway there.
But is the hallway okay to be in?
Yeah, because the hallway is only exhaust.
Okay, so we'll quarantine that area and...
If you want to do it that way, we can do it that way. That means your operations will have to be out in the hallway or in one of the other areas, whether it be the conference room that we don't have results back on, that kind of a thing.
I was just clear, I didn't hear anyone
Thank you.
say it.
No, that's a good question. Thank you. Go right ahead. Could you say who you are?
My name is Mary Beth Sylvia. I have a son that'll be in 6th grade.
Okay.
And my question is, obviously, this is not what we all wanted, but we're stuck with it. And you're talking about quarantine and putting the kids back into school, and I'm just wondering how disruptive it's going to be for them, even though they're physically there. I'm just concerned about the condition and what it is like there for them. And if you're going to, you talked several things about them still working during the day in this section. Is it loud? Is it noisy? Are they banging? I mean, what kind of environment are we putting them in? It's just a question. I'm trying to...
And just to clarify on that, quarantine is kind of an odd term. These samples were taken, we didn't shortchange or not clean the space. And if you walk around the space, it is clean. And we did that by running a vacuum. It's called HEPA filter vacuum, which captures particulates. And then we wet wipe down all of the surfaces. And then add fluids and wipe over the soils. So that was the process that we did. And then samples were taken. They tried to look at the air system and the samples were taken. And as Bob mentioned, that area only has an exhaust. What we didn't see was a supply for air into that area. We took the samples. Samples came up higher than we would have liked. The protocol that EPA puts out is if you have an area that may be elevated, then you go back in and you basically duplicate what we did. You re-vacuum, and then you wipe the area out and mop the floor. Let the system run, take the samples. And if there were any particulates that had fallen out, that's what you capture. Maybe we sample that way. So that process isn't any more, you're looking at guys probably running, vacuum for a couple hours. It isn't.
No, they're dressed in,
but it's all
hazmat, right? Because I've seen them working outside the building.
Yeah.
And they're walking in and out amongst the students. I mean, how are they getting stuff in and out? I'm just curious.
No, they're not going among
Just so you know, our people are FOIA check, which is a requirement for working in school in the state. Usually it's done right now. But the access to that area is all done by the building law. That area, I know that area, it looks big. It's not as ferocious as it looks up there in the if you've ever gone to the school, the cafeteria and the area between there, I don't suspect that it's any more than a page for us to have to do. And I don't think it's going to be, a basic intrusion.
And how long to shut up the quarantine, because it's now 6:30 and the phone blast is going to have to go out, school or no school, or what we're doing, and it's 6:30 and you still have to construct this quarantine.
I was late coming here because I was over there, and we already had 1.5 year of
Mike?
Well, again, as I've said a few times, I think we do have to emphasize some of this discussion, and certainly it continues to come up, is that quarantined plan part of the motion. I'm in favor of a quarantined plan. It sounds like more has been done than we realized. That's great. I'm also in favor of the ongoing maintenance of the green, because of the exchange of air, and the entire building, to follow the protocol. I know we've discussed the protocol of HEPA-vac systems, and there's training out there for the building personnel. I would be very comfortable knowing that our personnel is equipped with the equipment that's addressing this problem we have. Maybe we have some new HEPA-vacs that'll be in our building, not in a disruptive moon suit, if you will, but on the regular shift now, we're going to have a new system of cleaning our building, and I think it's all positive. It's going to help us create a cleaner environment, and I would, if we're not going to have air exchange and we're going to have the sections closed down, the approved plan seems to be working out here. I don't think it needs to be. These orange areas are pretty close to green. Regular maintenance staff is allowed in the building. EPA doesn't say don't go in the building. I'm saying that quarantine plan may include school personnel addressing some additional cleanup. We don't need to go any further than that, I don't see, because we can still test after. You can test after our personnel runs the vacuums in some of these buildings, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we don't need the decontamination team back on site. So the quarantine plan may be a very subtle approach to opening the building.
Ross?
And I think that's an important point that was brought up.
There's a few things that you touched upon. Lexington has trained their folks up there on PCB awareness. And I know Mike is in the audience, he probably knows more about PCBs now than all of us up here combined after watching everything that went down. So I think that is definitely a viable option. It saves a lot of money for the school system, and and the awareness training around this is a pretty simple thing. The school has been the materials that we found had PCBs have been removed. The school has been cleaned, and fussing windows with wipe samples to demonstrate that. To address another thing that you had mentioned earlier, I know the school committee is probably a little frustrated, and as you mentioned about why we didn't come with a plan. I don't even think you've got the official samples back yet. Yeah, we're trying to I think use logic. We're trying to use science, and we're trying to get the information to you folks as quick as we can. And Bob is calling the lab and essentially pressing the lab to give us some sort of indication of what is going on, because we know that the school's going to have to open. And I think him driving down here and calling me on the phone saying, hey, this is kind of where we're at. This is how fast we're trying to get information back to you guys. So, I think on behalf of our team, we apologize that we need to walk in here and say, hey, here's the plan, but we're kind of reacting to the instantaneous information that we're obtaining.
Do you want to?
I want to revise
Go
the
ahead.
motion. Can I make a revision?
Go ahead.
Because there's a comment to friendly revision. And in respond to that, apology isn't necessary. I I don't have any plans tonight, and I think good discussion and thoroughness and review is our responsibility. The motion, I'd like to make a revision focused on, do we need to...
I'll rescind my second.
Rescind the second. So the revision, or the new motion, would be starting with the or. What starts after the or?
Or approved plan to occupy building.
Okay. So my motion is to occupy the building tomorrow with an approved plan, which includes an ongoing maintenance and quarantine.
Karen, when you're done writing, can you read the entire motion and make sure that it's correct?
Okay. Make a motion to postpone opening of the building until totally cleaned under 300, or approved to occupy building with an approved plan with maintenance and quarantine.
Thank you. My revision is to actually put a line through everything, including the or. Eliminate that from the motion.
The beginning of it? The
Correct.
beginning of the motion? Okay. Okay.
So can you reread now without, the beginning of the motion is to
Okay.
occupy?
To occupy building with approved plan with maintenance and quarantine procedures?
Thank you.
Would
Yes.
that work?
Is there a second? Is there a second to that motion? Any discussion on that?
Can I hear
Yeah,
from
well,
them?
is there any discussion
Okay.
here first? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Janet Brinko. I have a concern that I'm not sure if anyone's even thought of, but I was in the school this morning, and like these red areas, specifically the cafeteria, everything's open, and people were traipsing through. The cafeteria the tables were covered with piles of boxes of, I don't know what, I hope it
It was
wasn't
supplies. It was supplies that came
that's
in on
going
a
into
UPS
the
truck.
classrooms that are green.
Yes.
That's a big concern of mine, because I feel like we can trust that what we're looking at, the reds and the greens, like look how close the cafeteria is to the auditorium that's green, assuming that the moment the tests were done, walls were put up to protect those, but people, didn't we say that dust particles and, like, how can we be sure that things that were in the rooms that were red are not now being brought all over the place?
Dr. Hall, you just had your hand up.
Just to answer that a little bit, the auditorium does have doors, so those doors have been closed pretty much all summer.
Okay.
In terms of new materials coming into the building, obviously they're coming from a place that we're suspecting, I mean, I don't know where they're coming from, but we're suspecting they're clean materials. They were placed there to distribute out to the classrooms. So if they were there for, half a day, a couple hours till they were moved, I don't know how much dust would accumulate, but talking about nanograms being...
I know, I understand that. It's just, I don't know, the way everyone's going through there today, I'm thinking, well, how accurate can we even feel like this is? I just wanted to bring that point up.
Thank you.
Hello, Gary Schupel. I have a daughter that's been in the school for 2 years and a son that's about to go in next year. My concern is, once we get the building green, which I don't think they should occupy it until it's completely green, to test when the children are in there. Since we're concerned about their exposure and their well-being, the test should be done when the building is active, not stagnant. It's been my understanding that an active room is going to read a lot higher than a stagnant room. It was made reference that the room was clean and then let it breathe for a few minutes. Well, once the air and the surroundings is disturbed, the readings will go up. And is there a plan to close the building again if it goes above 300? Just my question.
There is part of what we will be doing is long-term testing in addition, but I'll let one of you guys follow up on that.
The long-term testing plan is to, one, remove the sources from the building, clean the building, test the air based on baseline, if you will, that is meeting the EPA concentrations in terms of their guidance. Then occupy and then do quarterly monitoring during the course of the school year. Not every room will be tested during the school year. There was a decision made to test them all initially, but we'll do a quarter of the building at a time, basically, stagger the samples, but ultimately, during the course of the year, we would sample every room. A little bit about the conditions when we do samples. Yes, the building does not have students in it occupying it, but the conditions are with the air systems running in normal mode, as it would be during the school year. Again, the samples are being taken at various times during the day, really based on when we finish the work. But we do anticipate doing those samples, and we'll also be doing wipe samples during the course of that as well to look for settled dust and that kind of.
I'd just like to see it done as the students are in the room, so we can see what they're exposed to instead of what a blank room is exposed to.
Yep.
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Is that, when the sampling is done, is it noise? I mean, or is it just?
I guess that would be.
The sample pumps that we use, they're a low volume pump. They do make noise, not a significant amount. If you're familiar with an asbestos job, the pumps there are very, very loud, but these are a very low volume pump. They do make a little bit of noise. The samples typically run for 4 hours. That's really a minimum. We can actually run them for the full course of a day while the students are in session to get their full exposure. So that's certainly something we can do with the protocols that we will do once we actually start the monitoring, the quarterly monitoring.
Mr. Sullivan?
I don't want to have an extensive conversation on the protocol of testing, but my question immediately regarding these pumps. Throughout the cleaning phase, testing was done. I had an occasion, many occasions, to visit the building and did witness these pumps being left in the building. I believe that's what I asked one of the Fuson O'Neill personnel, and he wasn't able to answer, but these devices that were left in the buildings, in the tubes, in the stands, while cleaning was going on, shouldn't we be removing those because of, is that the pump you referred to is my question?
The pumps, how they work is they actually draw air through a cassette. The cassette is where you're actually collecting the data.
So those pumps that were there, that were left in the building?
No impact on the sample. Okay. No impact, because you're basically taking a cassette, a puff tube is what it's called for the actual sampling, which is kept in a steel container and basically wrapped in cellophane. It's unwrapped at the time of sampling and connected to the hose, and basically the sample air is drawn through that cassette. It has zero to do. There's no airflow between the actual sample pump and the cassette. It basically comes through. It actually forces a vacuum through the sample media.
Did she have a question? Did you have a question? Because you kind of, yeah. Do you want to come up to the microphone? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you had a good question, so.
No, I'm not. I'm Veronica Gagnon. I have a child going into 6th grade. And my question is, Mary Beth had made a point of, when they go, we want it to be a positive experience for the children. I mean, you're saying it's green. I would feel comfortable with the children going in, quarantining the area that they can't go in. But we want our children to have a positive experience going into school. My son's looking forward. If you're having all this and the talk about, oh, is this clean? Or, you know how kids can be, is this clean, is that not clean? I mean, we want them to be happy going into school. Oh, we can't go over there and that type of thing. And I feel that when they test it, I feel, and I know I spoke with Annie as well, that the children should be in the classroom. That's when it's at its busiest. Kids moving around, dust and all these particles are getting kicked up. So, but that's how I feel about as far as school, if we postpone school and clean. I mean, I haven't been in the school. I know some people have been in the school, but what does it physically look like to the children?
Right.
Do you know, they have that comfort feeling of like, you know, they're going back to school, everything looks the same.
Right. Not speaking on a comfort factor from that perspective so much, but just, I was in the school today and I was in the school yesterday just helping the teachers, even putting books back on the library shelves, and helping the art teacher go through her markers and whatnot. The teachers, in my opinion, have done a very good job with their classrooms. The classrooms are noisy. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing, they don't have the noise barrier on the ceiling anymore, the tectum. So they are noisy, and some classrooms are noisier than others based on the size. One particular 7th and 8th grade science classroom is quite noisy. The band room, I don't even want to go there. But I think the teachers have done a very nice job in the classrooms that I've seen, making them look welcoming, making them look homey. I was sort of teasing one of the teachers today. She has flowers on her desk and all little pretty stuff. And, they were given a very short period of time to get their classrooms ready. And I'm surprised at just how the building changed in the last 48 hours. There still was some work going on yesterday with some caulking, in the hallway, in the stairwells that I saw. I'm only going to speak to the particular stuff I saw in the room, and kudos to the teachers and to the staff, because I think they've done a very good job, and I think they've been very positive, which is fabulous as well. So that's just speaking from what I've seen from being in there. I'm not sure who had their hand up first. You guys want to duke this one out?
For the parents and for those of you who have not been in the school, I mean, I guess now besides this containment area with the poly and stuff, obviously that'll be something the kids will see. But basically, it's the ceiling tiles that are gone. That's the only noticeable thing. If you've been in that school last year, the ceiling tiles are gone. Now, I don't mean a drop ceiling. I mean a tile that's glued to the ceiling. So now you're seeing basically a painted cement. And it's that, and that's the reason why the rooms are a little louder. As far as the condition of the school, the money we've spent wasn't to remodel. A lot of people have this idea that we remodeled the school. It doesn't look like a hospital. The walls still look the way they looked before. The floors look the way. As a matter of fact, we replaced an old rug with new floor tile. So in some areas, it actually looks a little bit better. But the classrooms, besides the ceiling not being there, is the same classroom. And I asked several. I was in there all day yesterday. I was in there today. I asked several teachers, as many as I could talk to. How do you feel? They did a great job. They're doing a great job. And I would ask them point blank, so what is different between today and last year? And basically, the ceiling, the ceiling tiles. So, for some of you that might walk in there next week, tomorrow, and say, and get this, I don't know, there's a feeling of dread or gloom. If you walked in there last year, you should have had that same old words feeling. So, I don't know where all this was last year. To be honest with you, my kids are in the elementary school, so I have not been in that school that much until this past week, few weeks. And I don't like the condition of the school, but it's got nothing to do with the PCBs, nothing. That school needs a lot of things. It's just
keep
right
to the
now,
motion, Tony. Keep to the motion.
It doesn't have a ceiling. Nothing else has changed. And it is, in fact, clean.
Mike?
Thank you for the time.
I just wanted to add, and certainly Tony's captured some of my thoughts, but in my visiting in the building, and when we look at this, I want to remain focused. Yes, we're having a discussion of performance and results, and we're focusing on some very small areas that still haven't met our goal. It's very important to recognize, and we'll see this on the Excel spreadsheet, there is great improvements in this building. There's been a lot of work done to this building. 80-odd% of the square footage has been cleaned to acceptable standards, but the areas that are still in question are a lot better shape than they were before this project started. So I think it is going to be a positive if we section off where the students go and limit their exposure. I think they're going to be very happy with what they see. I think compared to my early August visit to last week, the building's actually in much better shape as a result of the attention it's received. And it was great to see some of the teachers in there and making it more student-friendly. That is going to happen. And the air is we're in a much better place than we were than last June. A lot of it was unseen to the human eye, but we have addressed that. So I'm comfortable with opening the building as the motion reflects, with appropriate traffic control in terms of personnel, where they go, and air quality control.
Is there any, Dr. Colley?
So if I understand it, it's kind of
what I suggested, that we open the building, have the students, if we need to, shift out of the, out of the orange areas, seal off the orange areas for the time being till we get them clean. We can use our own staff. I just verified we have 4 new HEPA-vac filters. Maybe your staff can, show them what exactly you would do so they can do it, including how to wipe, how to mop. Not that they don't know this, but at least if we get them through once, it would be the same level of care that you guys would do, so we can say we're keeping it consistent. So we can do the orange areas over the course of the week, do the containment area in the offices and the cafeteria area. We can get that done. Clean it. We'll use a bag system for lunches for till the results come back, hopefully, before the end of next week. Clean, test by weekend, and have the results by the end of next week, and hopefully the whole building will be cleared. We do have a school committee meeting scheduled for the 14th. So if we can pressure the lab, if we drop the stuff off like Monday at 8 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe?
Mr. Simonello, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You want to come up so that way people can hear you? The hallway in front of the main office from the cafeteria to the 230 rooms up in there, how often is that actually used by students?
Okay, I'm sorry. The hallway where?
Going into the office.
From the office area up to
those.
That hallway, how often, obviously when the kids go to the cafeteria from the 200 rooms, they would use that, but if they're not going to the cafeteria, how often is that hallway even going to be used? Because that was, you brought it up. Well, somebody brought it up about the numbers in that particular hallway. Would the students be traveling through that area very frequently? Especially since they won't go to the art room.
They travel through that area when they would go to the art room.
Okay.
7th and 8th grade students, when they would have to get to the art room, they would travel that way to get to the cafeteria. And students would travel that hallway, any student, when they're going to the nurse or going to the office.
But we can still make the
They couldn't use the back stairway?
No, I'm just saying that's how they would get there normally. Now, yes, we can divert all that traffic, and they can get to the art room, obviously, by going through the media center. They can get to the office. If we're going to be out in the hallway, they're going to use that way to get out in the hallway. Then.
So very few students quarantining or closing off the cafeteria area. Very few students would have to be traveling through in front of the offices where we had higher levels as well. Not in the hallway, but in the office areas.
Yeah, we would just redirect all the traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a high volume area? Not as much as all the other rooms, because there is constant traffic going in and out of the rooms. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
As the discussion is going beyond the scope of the motion, but it's discussion I thought we would have after the approval.
Okay.
If this motion is approved, I believe we still want to understand this plan of occupancy and the details. We're asking, and I have questions on that, so I can ask them now.
Just to clarify, it was important for me to be able to make my decision.
What I'm saying is I have questions, and I would wonder if it would make sense for us to call the question, and then if we have to review the quarantine plan, it may make sense for us to recess the meeting, go and ask questions in the building. I don't know. Yeah, I have questions on the quarantine plan, but that's if it's the approved option.
I agree with that, but in order to vote on it, I wanted to have that information in order to make my vote. So.
Correct, but what I'm saying is if we don't approve the quarantine plan as the second, in other words, the motion includes our approving the quarantine plan. I don't. Should I ask my question now on the quarantine plan?
Go ahead and ask your question, because for me it does help me.
I understand for you, but I'm asking if we're going to have discussion after this.
I think we need to have the discussion on the entire motion, which includes the plan. It includes, I don't know how I can make my decision if I don't
We have to approve.
Understand.
The second discussion, as I've said quite a few times.
Then you know what, Mike?
Is the quarantine
Then
plan.
hold your question then.
Because we're going to approve the quarantine plans as a second discussion, or not? That's what I'm asking you. Or do you consider this motion as approving a quarantine plan that we have
Karen, can you
questions on?
please reread the motion for me?
To occupy building with approved plan with maintenance and quarantine procedures.
How do you interpret your motion, because you are the one that made the motion? Do you interpret it as two separate?
Well, yeah, because
Okay.
it's focused on the opening relative to the plan.
It's your motion,
okay,
so...
Well, one question I have is the loading dock areas. We're talking about bags of
But
sandwiches
here's
coming
the difference,
in.
though.
Are they going through the red area or not? You can decide when to ask that
But
question.
here's the difference.
There's a loading dock area that's red. Are we going to quarantine that or not? We'll ask
Mr.
now.
Sullivan, my
I don't-
question specifically was concerning the students.
It's my question.
I understand that, but your question, the students don't go in that area
My
at all.
question is about the food the students eat.
Then it would count.
And I
But
guess
that's not how you worded it. Ask your question,
The loading
and
dock
maybe
area
Mrs. Is she still
Is there
here?
an alternate?
No, but I know the
Is there
answer.
an alternate area to enter the building besides the loading docks, which is red?
Yes.
Okay.
That is a question that I feel pertains to what your motion is.
Well, I believe it's the quarantine plan that we haven't looked at.
Did anybody else have any other comments? You're up.
Sarah Oliver, I have a daughter.
Come closer, I'm sorry.
Sarah Oliver, I have a daughter entering the 5th grade who's incredibly nervous. She's been nervous for most of August. The delay made it worse. She's a wreck. You might have answered this just now. How do the kids enter the building if that's red?
Go
They'll
ahead.
be coming from the front of the building. That's where the parents drop off. That's why I wanted to speak to quarantining the office area. It is easier to quarantine the office in front of the reception area and close it off at the other end where you have the nurse's office. So the nurse's office, which is green, is available. So kids can travel through that hallway. That hallway only exits air out. It's not pulling air in from anywhere else. So if we close that off, the offices can be worked on, after hours or whenever, to get them clean again. And then, they can be opened up again. But you can still use the stairwell, go up and down, go past the offices, which they won't be able to get into. But they can go to the nurses and they can go on to that side of the building. So, yeah.
The stairway would not be part of the quarantined area, and it's actually...
And I'm suggesting we don't quarantine
It's
the
actually
hall.
not part of the red area. If you see the white...
But that hallway then wasn't the hallway in front of the offices wasn't the one that was high?
No,
It's
not the hallway. It's the
actual
offices.
spaces
Okay.
of the offices.
But that's the hallway that I was just asking about. And, there would be very little travel through the hallway, but the hallway was not part of the red area. That's the strip of white in between the red and the green. It's the offices. But that's why I asked Mr. Simonello if we would be rerouting. Now, a 5th grader is going to go down anyway. They're not going to be going up to the office.
And how, I don't know, I'm not a middle school teacher, I'm a high school teacher. How chaotic is this going to be for, the 5th graders, the new ones, never been in the building before? I mean, how chaotic is this whole moving from here to here, and now instead of going next door to my class, I have to go...
I'm just gonna take from a parent's perspective, and having 2 children that have gone through 5th grade and adjusted to all of the changes. They don't know anything, and just speaking to whatever, they don't know anything walking in there. So if a teacher tells them this is the stairway you use, then that's the stairway they're going to use. I would think more of the other kids that have been in the building and now they have to suddenly make a change. And I would think it would affect them more. The 5th graders are going to be walking in nervous. What's my locker combination? What's my, what do I do if I lose it or if I forget it? And the 5th grade staff is wonderful in making sure that the students are comfortable, are understanding what they need to do and where they go and how do they get there. So I would think that adjustment would come from the staff perspective, and then the students wouldn't know any different. At least the 5th graders. The 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be nervous no matter what, coming into the brand-new building. They're not going to know where their classroom really was. The classroom 107, you know, those students don't even know that that's their classroom. They just know that they have that teacher, and now that teacher is in another part of the building. So the 5th grade staff and the entire staff, and I don't mean to be giving a plug or anything, but they have been very, very good, amazingly good at just being, you know, flexible and seeing it for what it is and making the best out of the situation. They're going to be nervous no matter what, but I think the teachers are going to be very good about it, and they're not going to have a problem adjusting them to where they're going. And when those rooms are clean, they can move into it without a problem, and the kids are very adaptable. Is it going to be chaotic? Yeah, it is. You know, you're going to have your plastic sheets around things where they can't go. It'll be explained to them, and life will go on. But
How do you start the day? First day? So they understand.
The first day, the 5th and 6th grade students, we're going to go one place. The 7th and 8th grade students, we're going to go to another place in the building so that we can tell them who their classroom teachers were, because they don't know where the rooms are. We just can't say go to room 110 because they don't know how to get there. The teachers will be there. They will escort them down. So the teacher who's in room 107 will get those children from the gymnasium, because we can use the gymnasium now, and they'll walk them to Lab A, which is where they are right now in the Media Center. And they'll start their day. It's going to be different. They're going to be, you know, she's going to be teaching in a fishbowl, because that Lab A has all windows all around it. It's not going to be, yes, it is going to be different. It's going to be, you know, very hectic for a while, but it is what it is. And
Hopefully by next Thursday, won't it?
And hopefully, yeah.
Mr. Sullivan?
Well, I have you on the microphone, and I want to thank you for the leadership you've shown throughout the summer. I know you've been on the grounds throughout the summer. You've been available for input. Just a suggestion, it's not going to be part of the motion, but I would strongly urge that you advise the teachers, no homework until next Monday.
I'll let them know that. Okay.
Mrs. Ellis?
Thank you. I'm the middle school nurse, and I have one child in the middle school. My question is to the testing, quarterly testing, and I just wanted to know how would the classes or the rooms be chosen for the testing?
Well, the intent is to do 25% of the rooms each time. So we will make a random distribution so that we cover the entire building, and then the next quarter we'll test different rooms until we have 100% of the rooms tested.
So it wouldn't necessarily be the higher, like the red and yellow areas that would be tested first?
We can target those first. We can certainly add additional samples. We can do any number of things to get the comfort level that we need based on this initial results. Our initial plan was basically just 25% of the rooms randomly selected and then moving through. But certainly we can adjust. We can look at the higher rooms initially here and target those. And like I said, maybe even add additional rooms as necessary.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other discussion on the motion, which is to open the middle school? Why don't you read it, Karen?
It says to occupy building with approved plan with maintenance and quarantine procedures.
No other
That was the
discussion?
amended motion.
Could I just add one other thing? Somebody had made the comment about people having to go back in with tie-back suits on, with the suits. The building's been cleaned, and all the samples that have taken the white samples show that it's been cleaned, so there is no reason for anybody to go back in and do any future work in what they call level D, which is basically jeans, shirt, and work boots, which is something that, either the environmental company or custodial staff would you don't have to wear a respirator, you don't have to wear the white suits, you can just go in as you normally would under normal construction.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Mike's motion to occupy
Occupy the building with approved plan with maintenance and quarantine procedures.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
2-2. Okay.
I think, from listening to Mr. Sullivan, I think that if he had a plan in place, I think he would probably change his vote, but...
Well, my impression was that the plan would come as the second part of that.
Okay.
So that's the way I understood it, that
Well,
if that motion passed...
What I would ask, if I could, through the chair, there's still some concerns. And so I'm reflecting some concerns with going into the building until it's all green. I made my decision based on those concerns, and I would ask for some input perhaps from audience members if they feel comfortable coming forward. What do we need to do in the way of this quarantine plan to have you be comfortable? We've talked about not passing the food through the red areas, perhaps the way that we segregate it. I like the idea, and that's why I mentioned using our staff. Maybe we have to find some more of our very colorful maroon staff shirts and have your personnel wear them. So that I don't think that's needed, but it's an important point that we not have the students come in to a decontamination procedure. And I believe the quarantine plan is something that's already been done, part of it. So I'm not looking to work through the night here, but if I go over and look at that building now, is it pretty much set up with what we would need for the morning? Is my question, and I would ask if there's some additional questions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I hate to come up twice, Janet Branco, but I don't feel that my comment about people have been walking through the red into the green all day long was really addressed. And as a parent, I'm not comfortable that it's 7 o'clock at night and we're going to be throwing together a plan. I don't know. I just hope you're really thinking about if this was a room full of all the parents. I think they would say no way. Just my comment.
One thing just to address about the red is shown, it's only air data. The dust sampling that was done is not shown on these in terms of a color diagram. So dust has been cleaned throughout the building, so storing items in there and so forth because the air is high. Again, there's cross ventilation through this building, through hallways and what have you. The issue is that 90% of the results we have through this building are green. There are some spots where the sample collected at that time was high. It's very possible that if we sampled right now, that sample could actually be lower. So the issue of storing things in temporarily while they're moved to another item, were they dirty before they came in? We don't know. They're moved into what's a clean room, walking through. These areas are clean. Again, this is the air is what you're seeing is the red. I just want to make that clarification that it's air, not dust that we're talking about. So they weren't traipsing through PCB-laden dust or what have you. This is air. It's in the air in general in the building.
And also, just to address what you're saying, and I do have I have a daughter going tomorrow as well, assuming they go tomorrow. Unless we go back through and test all of the green areas, which we're not even discussing doing right now, we won't know that a box that was taken from the cafeteria table and brought to, I don't know, say room 154, which is green right now, we wouldn't even know if that particular box did anything to the levels in that room. However, when we go back and do our quarterly testing and we do a room and we go, oh, that was under 300 before, now it's above 300, now we'll have to move students and address that particular room as things come about. So the items, as far as I understand, the rooms that are in orange and red, those teachers were notified early this morning that their rooms were questionable, and they were immediately moved out of their rooms. So they didn't bring those items on the cafeteria tables to the orange room and to their green room that they're in now. So we won't be testing the green rooms. So right, not by next week. So it's a valid point, and the air movement as people move, I agree with you. But aside from putting the students in a completely different building, I think that's something that we have to deal with as we deal with the quarterly testing as far as the green rooms are concerned. I do think you have a valid point, and please don't think that any of us dismissed it. Eric, you had your...
No.
I was just going to make one other point of
You had your
clarification. I think it's been addressed at several meetings before, but again, these are EPA guidance concentrations. It's not an action level where as soon as it crosses 300, now vacate the room and let's go. This is an annual average. People occupy the building 180 days for a calendar school year for the number of hours. EPA looked at the data in terms of toxicity of various PCB materials and basically came up with a guidance concentration. So again, we're looking at these numbers because we wanted to have a baseline where every room was under 300. That was kind of the goal of the project. But essentially, with these results, again, they can change, they can fluctuate a little bit, but it's not a one day it goes to 310 and we vacate the school. I just want to make that point, that this is not a action level which requires immediate action or reaction by the school or by anybody else.
Mike had his hand up first.
And that captures much of my sentiment, but I need to feel more comfortable before occupying the building. But having this discussion is a way to share what we observed. We're getting together today for first time in a week or so to review where we're at. We've gotten new information. The discussions ensued for an hour and a half or so where we become more knowledgeable. It's a public meeting, and we're happy that we're able to get some input. The coordination of this effort was outstanding. The storage back at day one of the air of anything that was in the rooms was done under extremely controlled circumstances and put into clean storage. So while seeing it pass through an area that the air is contaminated, I do want to assure you that there was much coordination both between the contractors and our facility personnel to guarantee that as we were cleaning, we didn't have cross-contamination. I was impressed on multiple visits when I saw, there was 3 different activities going on at the same time, but in unison. They weren't crossing each other. It was well controlled. I still don't know exactly what the plan is, and I wouldn't want any confusion, and that's why I still want to continue this conversation. The red area, as long as I don't see that there would have been a lot of cross-contamination, and I think that's what we just heard, in between these red areas and green areas. By limiting that traffic, the air is being limited. I'm concerned about what's going into the building, both the students, their food, new things coming in and not crossing through the red. And as long as we have access, I just want to hear more about that.
Dr. Colley?
I think I see an expression.
I'm just a little concerned that we've gone on for almost 2.5 hours. We have the people here that should be over there putting up these containment measures. I have parents waiting at home to find out if they're going to send their kids to school tomorrow. I would love to be able to just send out, I've already made my recommendation that we open. Yes, we have taken a look at all those issues as to where's the food going to come in, where's it going to be delivered. I would like to proceed to have, Triumvirate go over there, put up the containment areas, get that done, make a call to the parents so they know that we're opening school, so that they know if the kids don't want a bag lunch, that they should bring one from home, but that we're going to have that available. Buses are still coming. I think, parents at home are going to be wondering, like I said, we have been trying to get you the data as we can. I just looked at my email. I've been sending emails from Friday all the way till today. Been talking to the staff at the school, been talking to the principal, was there first thing in the morning. We just need to get the plan in place and go.
Yeah.
Hi, Tricia Robichaud. I'm a sixth grade teacher. I've been listening, and in my mind, there's two questions. One of clean and one of normalcy for the students. So it seems to me that we're going to clean those last red areas, and so then what creates the most amount of normalcy, the best learning environment, and the least amount of chaos. And I thought that you had earlier said 2 days if everybody was out of the building. No?
No, I didn't make a comment on how long it would take to do. I think we talked about the time frame.
I thought Marty had asked about everybody out of the building for 2 days, if that. So anyway, that was. So maybe I have misinformation. In my mind, and I'm only speaking for myself, I realize we're not going to get the test results, but I'm also hearing we're still going to go forward. We're still going to be in that building. We're going to try and keep it as close to 300. But I guess I'm just wondering the best thing to clean that area in terms of the children. And in my mind, that's not having them in one room for a few days and then in another room. Regardless of what you decide, we will do the best we can, and we will make it, the best environment we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
In response to her, I think she was actually commenting on what I had said earlier. I would feel comfortable sending students into a quarantine school on Monday after it was cleaned for 2 days. They feel confident they can lower those levels. I would feel confident sending kids on a Monday, giving them the opportunity to clean the school for 2 days, get all the areas, the orange areas, get them all cleaned to where they're starting school. I know it's only a snapshot, but now we're going to have a snapshot of Monday to where we could, waiting on the results, we're still going to have a snapshot of Monday having a clean school. We're not going to send any kid into a school with a red area. Monday, they'll all be green. There won't be any orange. There won't be any red. I know the testing results won't come back till Thursday, but that's part of our plan. It's a snapshot. So let's take a snapshot from Monday that they're all clean and not send them back till Monday.
Mike?
Well, again, I'm going to speak some additional time, if I could, related to the role of the school committee in making this decision. We've just been told that we've been sitting here discussing this and not coming up with a plan. We were coming here to look at a plan. We're still trying to hear that plan. Our motion was to take action. We're not taking action. The decision is now up to the superintendent what to do tomorrow morning. He's made calls from this table before. He can continue to. We have given him that responsibility. And I don't take that lightly. I don't take my time lightly when I come into this assembly to make decisions. It's difficult to make decisions without quality information. I found out tonight that there has been some procedures put in place to quarantine the building. I didn't know that before tonight. I asked. I wasn't given any information or any plans. I saw the floor plan tonight for the first time. So in terms of this school committee's decision, we had one motion. We made a decision, a vote. That motion died. There is nothing on the table right now to not have school tomorrow. So I'm leaving it with that. If we want to adjourn the meeting, and let's have school tomorrow. I don't know where he's going right now with the superintendent, asking what he's asking for. Is he asking for another motion? We often are told we don't need to make motions. Is there another motion necessary to open school tomorrow?
No.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Larrabee had his hand up. I'd like him to be able to respond.
Actually, I was going to make a motion that we delay school till Monday and give Triumvirate an opportunity to clean the room for 2 days and hopefully enter a totally green building on Monday with the test results hopefully coming by Thursday.
Is there any second to that?
To which motion?
To Eric's motion.
To delay school until Monday and let
Allowing
Let Triumvirate clean the building on Thursday, Friday, knowing that the test results won't come back till Thursday of next week, but we'll at least have in our minds by their doing. They say they can get them down below the 300, concentrating on those orange and red areas. At least I feel comfortable sending kids into a school on Monday, hopefully all green.
Is there a second? No second. That motion does not carry. Yes.
I know Mr. Sullivan moved to adjourn. There was another piece of the update for the middle school that I wanted to bring up. I know parents today found out that they were not informed of a requirement for 7th graders to get some additional vaccinations. We have a few students.
Chicken pox.
Chicken pox and the diphtheria, tetanus, and something else. I know we called some of the local doctors. We called the Board of Health to try to get additional, see if we could get our hands on additional vaccines, and that's not happening. So the question is, do we allow these students to come in if we open tomorrow, or do we let them come in and then give them a date by which they have to be vaccinated before they can come in? That's why Tracy was here, and I know Mrs.
I'd actually like to expound on that, because I ran into that with my 6-year-old with the varicella, which is the chickenpox vaccination. I brought him in mid-month. They informed me that they had the other 2 that he needed. They did not have the 3rd one. They said, come back.
Point of information?
I'm verifying that there is a shortage of the vaccination.
Point of information. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second or not to the motion?
Your motion to adjourn, is that with the one?
Is this discussion about the motion?
Dr. Colley is asking for what we would like to do.
I already made a motion before this discussion.
Is there a second on Mike's motion to adjourn?
So is this discussion relative to the motion?
I'm asking right now, is there a second on Mike's motion to adjourn? There is no second. We need to...
Point of agenda information? There's been much discussion that's been shut down throughout the past 6 months, by the way, that information that's not on the agenda.
Mr. Sullivan, it's 7:20.
And that's correct. And 3 days ago, if we knew about smallpox vaccinations, it should have been put in this agenda. I'm saying we're going into information that one chooses to. I think it's an administrative issue to deal with vaccines.
Dr. Colley, can
if we want to address it on the with a public statement, do it outside the meeting.
Can you address what happened with this information? Because I am one that received a phone call today.
I just found out today, so there was no update other than at 3 p.m., which I printed out probably before.
So we have closed the discussion on the... Have we closed the discussion on the middle school?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, we did not close the discussion
we closed the discussion on the updates.
Well, this is an update for the middle school.
No, I'm saying if we close the discussion that we're paying these...
We have not adjourned. Yes, they may leave.
Okay.
They may leave. Thank you.
So school scheduled is...
School is scheduled to start tomorrow, as we voted on several, was it last week or a week and a half ago?
Okay. My concern is the state basically said it's up to the schools to allow the kids in By law, they shouldn't. I do know that's an issue. I just found out today that the parents were not informed until today. I know the parents are going to be scrambling to try to find the vaccine. My recommendation is that they be allowed to come in and give them until, I would say, the 19th to produce proof that they've been vaccinated with the additional vaccinations.
Have they said why there is a shortage of the vaccinations currently?
This discussion is out of order. It wasn't posted on the
Mr.
agenda.
Sullivan.
It wasn't posted on the agenda. We didn't have an opportunity to research what you're going to tell us now. How are you looking for us to make a vote on this?
No.
Okay.
He's just looking for a recommendation.
Do we have to then? We're here to
Mr.
discuss
Sullivan, this is the
one
last
issue.
time. If you would like to leave, if you don't want to be part of the
That's not your
discussion,
prerogative.
go right ahead.
I have a parliamentary
Nurse Tracy,
question
could you
on the agenda.
could you please address the question to that?
As far as I would just say, as far as I know, there is not a shortage of the vaccine. I understand at your office that may have been the situation. The issue is that the parents were not informed. This is a new requirement for 7th graders. They've always required them to get a tetanus update, but this is a new requirement for the second varicella and also a second MMR, which all of the students actually already have. And in speaking with Ann Sheets up at DPH today, she said it is up to the school to decide if we want to allow students in without that vaccination and set, like Dr. Colley said, a set date that they have to have it by. I am in the process of trying to set up a clinic through the Board of Health in town. The nurse was not in today. Left a message with her, spoken with the immunization unit through DPH, and we're hoping that we can set up a clinic based at the town nurse or in the school building where, parents can come. Dr. Callan's been made aware, and he could give, myself, orders to vaccinate students that can produce proof that they do not have that vaccination, so we can get kids right back into school and make it as easy as we can for parents.
Thank you, Nurse Tracy. I would just, my own personal is to recommend Dr. Colley go forward with what he feels is the right thing.
From the numbers that I got, it's about 39 students. Some of them may have already had it. The doctors were notified of this change in the regulations as well, so if they happened to go into the doctors and the doctor paid attention to it, maybe they got it. So I don't know how many others, it's one of those things, it's a requirement. It is an update on the middle school, so I felt that it was okay to do this today since I found out about it today, and it affects the students by tomorrow.
Does anybody have any objections to him going forward with what he feels is correct?
I have objection, as I stated, to this conversation. I have full confidence in our staff and our health professionals that are in the system addressing it. I already heard that there's things in place, and I don't know why we're...
Thank you, Mike. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'm sure there's other things that are going on in the
second?
system that haven't been brought forward before this school committee. And I said earlier, I want to address during this Section 3. I'm still in the building, and I have a right to.
Go right ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Comments and statements from the public, like you.
At the beginning of the school
Can I tell my son if he's going to school tomorrow? It's 7:30.
Yes, we just said that. The students have school. We just said that. No. We voted a week and a half ago that school would start tomorrow. So his motion died and students will be starting school tomorrow. Mr. Sullivan, would you like to address in the comment statements? Go right ahead.
Yes, as I had asked, Ms. Chairman,
yes,
to address...
and that was my mistake in not letting you do it in the beginning. I apologize.
I wanted to make the announcement, and it was a decision made before regarding my resignation from the position of Vice Chairman of this school committee, based on a backlog of requests that I've had for items to put forward on our agenda. I will continue as an independent elected official of the Westport School Community Schools as their school committee to advocate on behalf of the community and students for those agenda items. But based on lack of flow of information which results in agenda items, I made my decision previous to the opening of this meeting to no longer be the vice chairman of this assembly.
comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.